All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to get right into it. We've got a jam-packed program, which we're really excited about. I'm Brandon Davis, president of the Board of Social Responsibility Chicago and senior director of marketing for the YMCA of Metropolitan Chicago. Thanks for joining us for our March program, Tech in the City, Building a Thriving Chicago Tech Ecosystem. We're hosting today's program in a meeting format, so a few housekeeping requests. Social Responsibility Chicago has a strict no solicitation policy. We are here to attend today's program and learn from each other, so please respect this space. Please also be mindful of background noises and kindly set to mute when not speaking or participating in a Q&A. And questions can be submitted into the chat and we will direct to our moderator throughout the session. If you're not yet a member with Social Responsibility Chicago, I encourage you to sign up. Thanks to our membership, we're able to produce dynamic programming and share valuable thought leadership resources. We're continually enhancing our members-only offerings, delivering even greater value to you, your organization, and what you bring to your work every day. Membership info will be shared in the chat. Once again, I want to extend my gratitude to our Social Responsibility Chicago members to support and help shape our program, and today's program is no exception. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Adam Hecktman, Director of Global Industry Partnerships for Microsoft Philanthropies. A lifelong Chicagoan, Adam is not only a member of Social Responsibility Chicago, but also sits on over a dozen boards for various nonprofits, think tanks, and civic and academic institutions. He is founder and publisher of shytechforgood.com, which is a blog site dedicated to tech for social impact in Chicago. Adam, thank you for joining us today and sharing a portion of your morning with us. And thank you for shining the light on tech and impact in Chicago. Take it away.
Thank you, Brandon, and hello, Social Responsibility Chicago, and thank you for joining us today. As Brandon mentioned, I'm Adam Hecktman. I'm with Microsoft Philanthropies, where I build global partnerships that are philanthropic in nature. When you think of Chicago, you think of the city that works. You may think of the city of broad shoulders. You may not think city of civic tech, and that's maybe because civic technology is not as well known as it should be. And the civic technologists who serve the public good with their skills are definitely worth knowing. So we're going to meet a few of the leaders in this space today. So I would ask our wonderful panelists, Nick, Katie, Elle, please light up your cameras so we can meet you. Let us know what you introduce yourselves. Tell us what you do, where you work, your area of expertise. Also, I'd love to hear how you define civic tech. And Nick Lucius, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and be on this awesome panel with some great folks to hear them talk. And my name is Nick Lucius. I'm the Chief Data Officer for the City of Chicago. I work in Mayor Lori Lightfoot's office. And my responsibilities are to make sure that as a city, as a government of almost 30 agencies, that we are using data across the entire enterprise in a way that's smart and strategic and protects and gets benefits from our data. So that involves everything from working on the data aspects of the $1.2 billion Chicago Recovery Plan to invest in our city in lots of different areas. It includes our IT department's strategic plan as they invest more in technology across the city and with our residents. And how would I define civic tech? You know, I think civic tech came out of a recognition that the machinery of governance for society doesn't live just within government, and that we've got basically a decentralized framework where power, information, and the ability to make progress lies kind of all over the place. And so there's not one institution that's responsible for achieving progress. And so civic technology comes about to say, hey, there's this great thing, technology, that we've seen academics and companies and others use to make progress. We should kind of all work on making progress in how our society and governance works with technology. So there's my definition. I'll back to you, Adam.
Well, that's a perfect lead-in into Katie O'Shea. Katie.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I'm Katie O'Shea. I'm a content manager at 3 Points Communications, which is a PR firm in Chicago. We work with a lot of mostly tech clients to help them tell their stories. And my role is about helping make sure that their content helps articulate their message and all that. But outside of that, I am also a board member on the board of directors of Chai Hack Night, which is a nonprofit here in Chicago that hosts a weekly event. Yes, I also have the mug today. Very nice. Free plug for Chai Hack Night. So every week we host this weekly event that's open to everybody. And I think that really gets at kind of what Nick's getting at with his definition of civic technology, which I think of as it's a big tent. It's for anybody who's interested in just solutions that might help the city or wherever you live just function better. How can you improve life for everyone who lives there? And so in terms of Chai Hack Night, that means that we open it up to everybody. We try to keep it understandable to everybody. And as you can see from me, I don't work in a tech role. Maybe I'm around tech companies, but I think that my story too, which we'll talk about a little bit more, I think later, is just proof that to be involved in civic technology, you don't have to be a software engineer or a data scientist. But yeah, I think that's where I would leave it for now.
And shameless plug, join us tonight at shyhacknight.org.
Yes.
Tonight is night. And Elle Ramel.
Adam Hecktman.
Tell us a little bit about you, about your ideas around civic tech, and how design is wrapped into it. That's kind of your jam.
It is my jam. Hi everyone, my name is Elle Ramel. I'm an urban planning and economic development professional by my training. Currently, I run a program in Chicago called Gender Equality and Technology. So I am focused on women non-binary empowerment in either tech workforce or in venture capital. But stepping back into why I'm in tech, I was in urban planning, but I'd like to lead a class someday called Citizen Experience Design, because urban planning used to be like, let's build a city, here's a city. Now it's kind of like if the city is sort of this, I think like options of streets and trees and parks, and you're just checking in with users about, let's say it's a park. Can a senior citizen navigate that park? Can a teenager like find a space to sit and be comfortable? Can someone with access issues work in that park? So when I'm thinking about urban planning and the use of technology, I think about citizen experience design. I think it's getting closer and closer together, where cities should be more responsive in that way, using data, using different tools and innovation. So that's my tech lens. And I think that's where I'm really excited about this conversation, because there's a lot of opportunities in the built environment where the built environment and technology are starting to collide. So that's my design space.
Let's stay with you for a second, Elle. We're a large city. We have our challenges. Public-private partnerships have been having a moment for years now. In fact, you and I work together in a public-private partnership. Let's talk about how public-private partnerships can help solve some of our most pressing challenges, especially some of our most pressing technology challenges.
Absolutely, Adam. So I think one thing I learned, so I came from the Chicago mayor's office, and then Adam and I were involved in it was called Smart City, but I like to call it like functional technology now, because smart cities is a buzzword. I think the biggest thing is city departments don't have the time to take a lot of risk on new inventions or new opportunity. They still have to keep the snowplows running. They have to make sure that the potholes get fixed. But if there's a new opportunity, let's say there's a different type of concrete, or you could have recycled materials in your buildings, the public-private partnership is the way that a company with that product or technology can say, hey, we're willing to take this, recycled concrete material and try it on a couple buildings. And then the city can work through if, okay, I'm seeing how that's working, old policy and building. I come from building, so apologies everyone, but the city says, okay, we haven't really tried that type of innovation. We haven't tried that type of sensor, but the public-private partnership, like what you did at Microsoft, Adam, is you helped defray the risk. You took the risk away from trying a new thing, a new platform, using Azure at Microsoft. And so I think that's an important nuance of this kind of research and development around cities. I'd like to think it could happen all in government, but sometimes with budgets and time constraints and the fact that elected officials are on a time cycle, a partnership with like a Microsoft could be longer and be more resilient.
Yeah, the risk balance and the timeline differential is an interesting dynamic to it. Nick, you're in the city government. What's your opinion on this? How do you feel like public-private partnerships can and do work?
You know, I think there's a lot of different ways. And one of the top things that comes to mind to me about this is, you know, one of the number one things that we hear from residents in our most challenged neighborhoods is the need for jobs. You know, there's so many needs in our city, for everything from affordable housing to food equity to lots of different things. But the need for jobs just really kind of encapsulates all of it, because it's with jobs that you can get access to things to make a better life for yourself. And so, you know, from that, I think there's an example of a public-private partnership going on in the city right now that gets at that issue. And so the city of Chicago works closely with World Business Chicago on tech economy issues. And so the city's entered into a partnership with World Business Chicago and P33. So I'll just talk a little bit about what's going on in that world. And so just this last December, so just a few months ago, P33 launched the Chicago Tech Talent Coalition and issued a report on the state of Chicago tech talent and workforce. And so, you know, I think what's really interesting about this is P33 has the power of convening all these different companies. They've put together this Chicago Tech Talent Coalition, which is 39 different companies that represent $1 trillion in global revenue here locally, and with 100,000 Chicago area employees. And, you know, this work is just getting begun. They've convened over 100 one-on-one conversations with leaders in the tech ecosystem here in Chicago, and have identified, you know, a lot of the areas that they need for growth. You know, we all know it's software engineering and data analytics is this area that these companies are just looking for people to fill jobs, and there just aren't the people to fill the jobs. I think that, you know, what the report has shown is that kind of everybody agrees the issue is not only just creating more people for the pipeline or looking at the companies to create more jobs, but it's kind of both. It's both and. And so I really look forward to seeing what comes out of this, the Chicago Tech Talent Coalition and this work that's just getting underway. But I thought it was a good example to bring to the forefront for the conversation today.
And since you brought up talent pipeline, Elle, can you talk for a second about how tech has been able to create new career pathways? I know that's something you've looked at.
Yeah, so one of the mandates of my organization, it's funded by the Gates Foundation, Melinda Gates, and she came through a technical background, and she was disquieted that tech jobs were always, Facebook and Google were the places, let's look for women, non-binary, BIPOC individuals in a tech job, but really you're looking for a technical role in all sorts of industry. And Chicago, no industry is over 9% of any industry: health, life science, agriculture, and food. And so what you're seeing is the tech jobs are quietly in all of the different industry sectors. So I think COVID-19 advanced the need for virtual engagement. You have biotech and medical, you have CPG and supply chain. You have to keep track of all those trucks that are getting all of our goods around the country and the world. And so what you're seeing is about 2/3 of tech jobs in Chicago are at a corporation, not a startup. And so I think the nuance of just like uniting that tech banner and realizing that every company in Chicago has a tech workforce is only getting magnified. Cybersecurity, fintech and online payments. The more times we shift to the virtual and the digital space, the more jobs that manifest. It's just communicating to different, to Nick's point, community organizations, neighborhoods, schools, that this is a tech job. I'm doing a panel at Hyde Park Academy soon where an entrepreneur, people are thinking like, I'm a TikTok influencer, but you really could be an entrepreneur in many, 20 industries. That's only the starting point. So how do you translate, Adam, all these changes in jobs to kind of a new mind thinking about tech?
And that's a good lead into my next question for Katie, which is that given that tech jobs are everywhere, how can we, and when I look at who's on this call right now, and I say we broadly, organizations, corporations, individuals, how can we help champion diversity in this field, which has been predominantly white, predominantly male?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and there's so many ways to attack it. So I was thinking that it would make maybe the most sense for me to talk about how we've worked on this at Chi-Hacknight, because this is an area of like constant improvement for us. We are not perfect, and no place is, and any place that tells you that they've got diversity figured out is incorrect. But basically, we have sort of gone about it by always making sure that we talk about it and we center it when we talk about what do we value, what kind of community do we want to create, who's not in the room with us basically at any given time. So making sure that we always talk about that and don't just kind of like say, okay, like we're doing pretty well, like we're pretty diverse, that seems fine. So talking about it and also measuring it has been really important. And one way that we did that this past year is we started a demographic survey so that we could keep to this set of OKRs that we created around encouraging diversity at our events. And we basically set a goal. One of our OKRs was to ensure that 30% at least of our presenters are persons of color. And so every time we have a presenter come on, we ask them if they can please fill out the survey for us so that we can hold ourselves accountable. And we did pretty well last year. So we're going to keep improving on that in this coming year and in all the ways that we think about who are we making this a safe community for. But I think in every space of your life, you have to just think about, are you creating spaces where people feel comfortable sharing their experiences, sharing their insights, not just feeling like, well, I don't know, I'm not sure that they want my opinion or my help, whatever kinds of steps you need to take to make space for others. It's so important always. And one of the ways that we have sort of attacked this too is we at one point in 2020 set up discussion sessions during basically all of the aftermath of George Floyd's death, trying to make sure that we were holding a space for people to talk about their feelings and how much like we still have to do, all of us as individuals and as organizations. And so one thing that we examined back then, which I would encourage you to take a look at, is the Characteristics of White Supremacy guide, which I can link in the chat. I know, Mary, you're doing a great job putting in all the links, but I am happy to link it for you if you need. But that's by Tema Okun, and it basically goes through the ways in which elements of white supremacy culture might insidiously be part of just the way that you do things in an organization, for instance. And so it's really important to be mindful of it. I think it's a really great guide to like start thinking about how that manifests itself within your organization. We have a DEI discussion group within our organization where we talk through, basically, we have it open every week and sometimes people come, sometimes people don't, but it's basically holding a space for people to chat through anything that's on their mind. But yeah, and I think we have a whole blog post that I can also link to about this, about steps you can take. But another thing that we started last year with diversity in mind was offering speaker honorariums to all of our presenters. We recognize that not everyone is in a position to give away their time for free. And so even though it's not a lot of money, we offer $100 to any speaker who wants to come and present at Chi-Hacknight in order to make it a little bit more worth their time to share their knowledge and to chat with us. So yeah, I think all in all, it's steps like that that we try and keep working on, keep improving.
I thought that the honorarium piece was really smart. In fact, I stole that idea from Chi-Hacknight, and now if you want to post, if you want to do your blogging on chitechforgood.com, I'm offering honorariums. Not many people have taken me up on it, but you're right, because people's time everybody's time is worth something. Elle, do you have an opinion on how that we can champion diversity in the field?
I think that's it's my bread and butter right now, and I don't have all the answers. One thing I think I'm really passionate about in Chicago for this is near peer kind of support networks across companies. So bridging the gap between many companies have employee resource groups, but making sure that one thing I think that's hard about ERGs is if you're a Black woman software developer at one company, there might be one of you, but there might be 100 of you in Chicago that could all compare notes on, are you comfortable in this space? How is it going with your employer? We ran a fellowship last year for 20 first 5-year professionals that were all BIPOC, women, trans, and non-binary. And I think it was an important step in retention, because another thing that Mike McGee at Anita B and I talk about this a lot, you can put a lot of people into the pipeline, but if it's a revolving door, you don't get a net gain. So how do we anchor more people in the tech space and have them feel comfortable? And a lot of times is if you're in one company, there's a lot of things to do with systemic change, but it's also finding allies, whether it's a mentor right above you, someone below you can mentor, but also this near peer lateral network. So I think that's also important. I think things like Shy Hack Night, Be Wise, Latinas in Tech, Out in Tech. I'm trying to make sure to bring the professionals I connect with into my community, but also to show them all the other communities, because I think the more you understand how it works, I think you get more solid ground in the space, especially if you're the only person of one identity at your company.
Yeah, you're so darn good at that. And that brings us to the topic of equity. So Nick, let me start with you. In your opinion, has technology improved equity and empowerment in under-resourced communities? And when I say technology, I'm thinking broadly. I'm thinking broadband, access, knowledge, digital literacy, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it has had a big impact on a lot of different ways. And, where I come from on this is, before I was in this role, I was doing a lot of research projects, a lot of data science projects to take a look at issues and come up with ways to use data to make things work better or solve an issue. And in that work, it got me out into the neighborhoods a lot, into a lot of areas that I had never been in Chicago. On the street, talking with residents, going into community resource centers, watching the way that the experience of an individual who needs help and the steps they need to take, the people they need to talk to. And in those conversations, I think firsthand, I just saw how much a fast internet connection is so important for just functioning. And it's something that I think, depending on where you live, what zip code you live in, you either you have it, you take it for granted, it's part of your daily life, and you just always expect it to be there so that you can do what you need to do, or you may not have it and be disconnected and then not even be fully aware of how it's affecting the opportunities that you have available, because you may have just never had it. Or only had little bits and pieces of it. And so, actually seeing that play out with people and naively saying like, well, how about we just do this? And then seeing that the thing that I just said involves the internet and requires a fast internet connection. So, I think that let's go back to just getting a job, like I was talking about in my first answer. Getting and keeping a job requires that fast internet connection. And even the people that, when you're applying for a job, other people that are applying for the job have it, right? And so I think one of the big changes that we've seen in this area, at least locally in the city, is the Chicago Connected initiative, which Mayor Lightfoot rightly took this issue on in the best way that we could as a city, to go straight to CPS and provide access to internet connections for thousands of Chicago families and students. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the first step towards more that we need on this issue. This is going to take federal funds. I know there's a lot of talk about broadband right now and a lot of federal money that's out there. A lot of it gets focused on rural areas because of the just kind of like the physical thought around like, we've never built out to some of these areas. So underlying infrastructure needs to be built, but we have a lot of these problems in the urban core that need to be addressed, even though the problem isn't like miles of pipe or miles of fiber. but there are issues of people not having access that are just as important. And then the last thing I'll say on this is when you have a fast internet connection and you've got a device that can handle a fast internet connection, and you have even training on how to use the internet, none of this is going to get as far as it needs to get unless we have user-friendly, accessible access to services for residents and websites that make things easy. Some of my colleagues on here are going to be able to talk about this even more than I can, but that bridging that digital divide is just one step, because when you're using a website, and I've seen this when I've watched people, someone who's had the internet for a long time uses a website in a different way than someone who hasn't, and the user experience is going to be the difference between someone receiving a service or giving up because they can't figure out how to get that service.
Yeah, and you're spot on this, and the rural versus urban piece is an interesting dynamic because the technology to get access to internet is different. In rural areas, you can use TV white space to connect disconnected people. In urban areas, it's a little bit different. And it was great that the mayor leaned in with CPS. During the pandemic, the Chicago Public Library, there's 81 libraries for 77 community areas. They also leaned into access. Let me flip back to the civic tech community for a second. And Katie, I want to ask you a question here. Nick presented at a Chi-Hack night early in the pandemic. I think it was like the summer of 2020. Nick said something that stuck with me. He said that one goal is to design government to give communities information and thereby power to enable change. Think about that for a second. Wrapped into that statement is an acknowledgement that some of our systems are unjust. They use old models. They don't deliver on equity, may not deliver on racial justice. How can people like ourselves in the tech community help government to make that change?
I think my internet cut out for a second, but it's how can people in the tech community help government make change?
Make the change, okay. Because we know that some of our systems are stuck in old models and are not delivering on equity.
Yeah. I think there's a number of different ways. I think one of the things that we do is we try and create at Chi-Hack Night a space where tech people can make themselves available and their expertise available to people who work in government. It's one of the reasons that I think we try and create the community that we do, so that people who work in government, people who work in tech jobs spanning all kinds of different fields, and people who are organizers, journalists, any other range of students, anything, can come and feel like they can present the problems that they face in their own lives, whether or not they have the tech skills to create an app to do something with it. So I think that's one way, tech people coming and showing their skills. I think that tech people can publicly advocate for when they see things that could be fixed. But we do talk a lot about this idea of building with communities. So it should be basically, if you're trying to design some kind of tech solution, you should be doing it with the people who are experiencing the problem and not for them, not like, oh, I made you this app. I hope this solves all the problems that you're facing right now. So yeah, I think those are some of the main ways. So I think we try and encourage that model of like building with in a lot of ways. And you can see that in some of the past projects that have come from Chi-Hack Night. We've definitely seen ones like, for instance, like M-Relief, which is this project that turned into a fully fledged nonprofit. You should look them up, they're great. But they basically help people enroll, see if they qualify for, and then enroll in SNAP benefits. And so that's like an instance where it's building for a problem that exists and doing it with this, like centering dignity at the core, dignity of the people who are using this product at the end of the day. We, in our organization in 2020, seeing that there were a lot of organizations out there that were lacking the tech and data support that they needed, especially during the pandemic. We created this tech and data help desk, which gives people the chance to request help if their organization is having some kind of tech or data need or problem. And they just want to see if someone who has more experience in one of those areas can give a hand there. And we're still running that today. So if you or your organization are facing some sort of issue in that respect, you can request it. And I can also link to our post about that, which has information about how to request it and also how to offer help if you yourself have skills in that area.
And Nick, to your point about not assuming that somebody has broadband access, when MRelief built their solution to help people discover the benefits that they're entitled to, it was an SMS messaging first platform. It had a website, of course, but it was built around the notion that you may not have access to a website, but you might have access to text messaging. And how can we ask the right questions to guide people to the benefits they're entitled to? One of the nice things about human nature is that there's always a next generation that we can start working with to start building the mechanisms for the folks who are going to be doing the work on the new systems, the new models of equity, et cetera. But you have to attract them to good tech careers, and Elle is one who's growing someone from that in that generation. How should we engage the talent pipeline? And I'm thinking particularly CPS students, and help them understand what skills or what experiences are going to be important for the careers that they're going to need, that are not only going to help them become economically mobile, but are going to help us use technology to break old systems.
Okay, I'm so excited about this because my big challenge statement for the year, Adam, we should talk, is the amount of corporate philanthropic and government funding at the high school level and how it does not necessarily translate to the workforce. Like I'm thinking about Google, certain people in college and high school, you're watching them, they're making sure you feel acknowledged, and then they hire you at the end. I think we could do a lot with Get Cities as a systems organization. I'm fascinated by the tracking. So my thing is, if you're introducing, let's say, robotics or computer science for all at the CPS level, how are those students understanding an actual career, a mentor or a professional that is using robotics, using computer science in their day-to-day job, and in a very relevant way to something they use? So I don't know, if you're on Discord all the time or you're on Minecraft, it would be pretty cool to be in a computer science class and then be like, oh my gosh, I could build Minecraft for the rest of my life. And I met someone who is involved in the user experience design of Minecraft. What we're seeing a little bit in the computer science space is it's very theoretical, or it's based in a language and not necessarily in the case application. I ran multidisciplinary teams last year in this fellowship. I had a data scientist, a software developer, and a UX designer work together that were in their first career to make a tool or an app. And I think that's why Shy Hack Night is good, is sometimes you're in there and you are cleaning code, but if you go to Shy Hack Night and you're like, oh my God, I just invented a way for the array of things to work, it's totally different. So getting the project-based learning and the teaming early, because if not, you're basically waiting till you get promoted to first manager. And then you're like, I've literally only talked to Python people, and you HTML, Java people drive me insane. But if you start, I'm just saying it's a language thing, but if you start early on this idea of like, I'm going to take this code and I'm going to do human genomics and it's going to, solve cancer, like that's a whole different way of looking at tech. So I think practical application and project-based learning for me is so important.
That's phenomenal. We're going to stay on that topic for a second, but I just want to remind the audience that if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will get to them. My last question follows onto that beautifully. It feels like there's a lot of resources available for potential talent to access as they grow in their skills and knowledge. In fact, there may be too many different places to go. How do we make it simple and easy for people who want to build these skills to access these skills? Katie, let's start with you. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of tools out there for sure. I think it's really important to think about what kind of community you want to be a part of. I guess if you're the person trying to do the learning, thinking about like, is this a place where I feel supported and able to learn without judgment or without feeling like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I think that's one of the reasons that we try and make Hack Night an open space where anybody, even if they're not in tech, like for instance, I don't work in tech, you can contribute even if you're not in one of those roles of software engineer, data scientist, or something of that ilk. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, not maybe forcing it on anyone to like have to, oh, you have to learn how to code in order to be part of this community, or you have to be able to know what all these lingos and the names of all the languages are in order to follow the conversation. You just have to keep on, I think if you're the person providing the resources, you have to remember that everyone is on their own learning journey and they may not know what all the things that you're talking about mean. So never forgetting what it felt like to be at the beginning of that journey is so important. And just keeping it a judgment-free zone where people feel comfortable engaging with it however they're going to engage with it. So we have a lot of resources out there if you're curious about starting to get involved in or starting to see what civic tech is all about. You can check out our Hack Night YouTube library if you want to see a bunch of our old presentations. Several from the people who are on this call right now, and they're all really cool to watch. So I would say check that out if you're interested at all and you think maybe this could be for.
That's one of the many quotes from today that's going to stick with me. Never forget what it was like when you started out on this journey. Nick, you've been on this journey. We've been on it in the private sector, the public sector. What are some of the ways that you think that we can help make it easier for people to access the skills they need to build their technical chops?
I would say first and foremost, everything that Katie and Elle has said today, I would direct people to listen to that. There's so much good information on how to reach people where they are and make them feel like they're part of, they're welcome, and that there's a progression where if they engage, that they can start to see, oh, I'm actually making a difference here, and I have a place, and I fit, and this is doing something for others, and so for me, you know, a large part of how I felt like I had the ability to grow in this space was because of those kinds of things existing. I went to Hack Night when I decided that I wanted to get into technology and work in a job in technology. I came to every Tuesday and then volunteered on a project. And so, you know, those resources are there. I think that we absolutely have to, as a government and as a society too, focus on this, making our technology tools simple and easy to access. Because I guess my point is it's so easy to not focus on that and to have the things that we make with technology not really empathetic to the person who's using it. And then that just makes it so that, well, why would I spend time with a tool that is hard for me to use? So then I guess my last point here will be, I think there's a great example of how to do that, that I'm working on, or I get the pleasure to work on with others in the city right now, which is the mayor's My Chai, My Future initiative. What this is for kids who want to connect up with programs outside school. You know, there's so diverse, so many different providers, and it's kind of, it's intimidating to say, like, how can I find something that's for me? The My Chai, My Future website aggregates a lot of those opportunities together to say, here is, you know, here's a way to search for things that you can do outside school to enrich what your desires in life. And there's a really cool thing coming with this where the city's partnered with a company where the founder of the company learned to code at an after-school program, used the Chicago Public Libraries to get better at coding, created a company, and is doing this now. And now he's partnering to build the My Chai, My Future app to create a better experience for people searching for out of school programs. So it's just like reinforcing every step of the way that the way that you reach people who need help is by focusing on those people and who they are and what they need. Love the shout out to you media. I'll stop there and give Elle some time to answer too.
Yeah, there's just so much out there. There's also all these boot camps. I think I saw Shane Morris on here from Code Nation. So there's those boot camps as well. Elle, bring us home. You've built communities around this. You did the design workshops, and give us your perspective on this. How do we make it simple and easy to get these skills?
Yeah, so I think what's so interesting, like Nick pointed out, is we're a huge metropolitan area. We have a lot of skills, classes, workshops. I think sometimes it's almost infinite and too many. And so I have like 2 slides that I stare at all the time. One's the entrepreneur journey and one's the professional journey in tech. And I don't think it's a lack of programs at each step: college, first job, manager. What I'm fascinated by, and I think I might just spend my time like furiously tracking people in the conversion between each step. So let's not lose the momentum. If someone goes through Shane's Code Nation program, is there something where they get to DePaul or Northwestern and then they know where they came from? Like Nick, like you just rattled off all these programs someone came through. We should know that, if girls who code, they went to college, they're women in computing, and then they kept going, and then they were in their ERG, and then wait, there's a leadership program in Chicago, or I don't know, Crane stuff. But we need to be tracking that journey, because what we're getting is shed and people falling off of that pathway or moving away. And I think it's better for us to just as a city know, and if everyone happens to be doing robotics and then they all don't keep going, like let's look at our robotics programs. Or if everyone goes to college for computer science and then they're, on the coast, like what are we doing as a city? So I think it's about the transition between those steps that I'm most fascinated by.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, my fellow civic tech folks, Katie, Nick, Elle. Appreciate your time, appreciate your insights, love getting into your minds. And with that, I am going to turn it back over to Brandon. Or perhaps Kate. No, there's Brandon. Okay.
No problem. Thanks so much. I'm happy to close us out and appreciate the really thoughtful conversation that you all had with us this morning. Appreciate the dialogue between all of us. I've learned several new things this morning, which I always appreciate doing before 9 a.m. and even before 10 a.m. So we appreciate all you're doing. Thank you all to our guests for joining us this morning. We appreciate you. If you're not a member, like I said before, we encourage you to join, become a member of Social Responsibility Chicago. And to our current members, thank you for your continued support and partnership. We appreciate it. Stay tuned for some more emails and marketing materials from us. We've got some really terrific programs coming up, and we look forward to seeing you at our next one. Thanks so much. Have a great day.